The always classy Spike TV is coming out with a new reality show called The World's Worst Tenants. And they're basically focusing on evicting people. And the evictors are the real heroes in this show. Let's watch a trailer.
Yesterday, we visited a boxing gym that had a lot of reports of injuries to make sure that the tenant had the owner's name on the insurance. Since most of these injuries are happening after business hours, we're going back tonight to surprise the tenant and find out what's really going on. Bare knuckle boxing is illegal. Guys are going to get seriously hurt or killed.
Now, when I say that this is a reality show, I use that term loosely because in reality, these are reenactments, but we don't even know if these situations took place anyway. And by the way, this is just one example of the show. There are actual episodes where they evict people who can't pay their mortgage, people who have several tenants living in the same apartment because they don't have enough money to afford their rent. So this is something that I find interesting because you're seeing more and more of these shows where you have train wrecks, sideshows, people that we can kind of point and laugh at and feel better about ourselves. Desi, do you feel like this social phenomenon has kind of turned us all into bullies?
Well, I don't think it turned us into bullies any more than we already were, perhaps. You know, I think this is something that has been going on for centuries. Obviously, you know, the bread and circuses in Roman times, keeping the people entertained so that they didn't notice that they weren't making enough money to get by. You know, we do have this, apparently, this dark human nature that likes to see these sort of train wrecks. You know, there's Schadenfreude that is obviously at work here when you sort of, when people watch to enjoy, take pleasure in, laugh at people's really bad circumstances, you know, it gives you an opportunity, like with the old soap operas, to say, oh, look how horrible that is there. That's not me. I'm glad that's not me. Look how great I'm doing. I get to be self-righteous. But, you know, they're not all bad. Some of them actually turn out to be pretty well. You get to see people overcome their circumstances.
Really?
So, you know, there are a few that do that. There are a few reality shows that are actually quite informative about worlds that you might never get a chance to see. Like there's a reality show about little people, for example. Another one about the Amish, about Amish living out in the world. You know, so you can see in some of these cases, you can get more information about what that world is like. But in most of these other ones, it's total misery porn, complete misery porn.
Right. Now, I know that some uplifting reality shows exist, but when it comes to the reality shows that do the best, the reality shows that get all the attention, what comes to mind? The Real Housewives, Jersey Shore, Hoarders. Hoarders is ridiculous. I mean, we are basically pointing and laughing at people who have a severe mental disorder that causes them to live in filth. Lucas, why do you think these shows are so successful? What does that say about the country? Especially in economic times like these, by the way.
Well, kicking people out of their homes who, you know, can't afford to pay, there's nothing too appealing about that. Something like where someone is doing something illegal in a, you know, a building that someone else owns. I can kind of see that. It feels like a righteous-ish thing to be doing, to be getting rid of them. But I think maybe it is a way for us to kind of see these people, you know, some individual who, you know, kind of represents to us an aspect of the culture that we don't particularly like. And we can see, you know, because obviously reality TV selects out for the most extreme cases, but it allows us to kind of paint with a broader brush for other people that we perceive to kind of fall into that category as well. So, you know, maybe in some way it kind of helps us to write off some of the issues that we see in the society at large.
Malcolm, do you feel at all that we might be living vicariously through some of these characters? I mean, obviously not Hoarders, but when people watch Jersey Shore, do you feel like it brings out their inner rebellious youth that wants to go out drinking and flashing people in public? Is there an element of that?
Well, I mean, personally, I don't need to because I have the same, my abs look just like the situations. It's really uncanny. You'd know that if you'd read my online dating profile. But you know, I don't know. I think one of the arguments, and I'm supposed to play the Republican, so I'll try to do it. One of the arguments in favor of these types of shows is that they depict a world that you're supposed to see and then say, oh, I'm not gonna be like that. You see The Biggest Loser and these huge fat people who might appeal to some people in online dating, I know, but for the most of us, not. And you say, okay, I'm not gonna. It's gonna discourage me from getting fat like that, or I'm gonna lose weight because, oh my God, if I look like that, I gotta lose the weight. I don't really think that's the case, but for me with these shows, I don't know how much of it is us just liking to see human misery. I think that may be true to some extent, but I think mostly it's just that they depict drama and it's dramatic. These, you know, seeing a Hoarders, I haven't watched a whole lot of Hoarders, but when you see an episode of Hoarders or some of these shows, there's high drama. And the same thing with soap operas. We like to see dramatic situations, and especially when people overcome those circumstances. I think that's really popular, when they lose the weight on The Biggest Loser. So I'm not willing to paint such a broad brush, say, oh, we're all horrible people for watching these shows, because I think they have a really mixed appeal, and some people may appreciate just pointing their fingers and laughing, but other people might say, you know what, I like to see the triumph of the human condition sometimes.
I have to be completely honest, and I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea to think that I don't enjoy reality programs. I watch them all the time. Like, after a 12-and-a-half-hour day here at work, talking about politics, Mitt Romney's gaffe, Obama's gaffe, all of this nonsense in the political world, I want to shut my brain off and watch something mindless. So I think that there's also an element of that, where Americans are drowning in their own misery with this economy, you know, unemployment. We have these clown politicians right now that aren't really doing anything about the real issues we have in this country. Sometimes we want to turn our brain off and we want to consume whatever, someone else's stupidity and just kind of laugh at it and call it a day. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing, but there are certain shows where I would say that it makes us bullies to watch it and enjoy it. And Hoarders would be one of them. And I don't know if that's too judgmental, but I just see that happening. Also, Lucas, what kind of impact do you think this has on young people? Because, you know, people will make the argument about video games, for instance, and they'll say, oh, video games are making the youth violent, but studies have shown that they really don't make young people violent. But do you think that with reality shows and some of the shenanigans that people in the Jersey Shore get into, would that influence young people to also act that way? Because think about it, they've become tremendously wealthy by acting that way.
That's true. I think certainly there are some people that will probably be influenced by that. And the unfortunate thing is, you know, a show, I know we've talked about it on the Young Turks, a show like Teen Mom, you know, if you're a young girl that is looking for a lot of attention or something.
You want to get on TV?
Exactly. What's messed up is, you know, and this would not apply, I think, to most people, but to the people that are going to be, you know, drawn to the appeal of that. It incentivizes messing yourself up or messing your life up as much as possible, because you got to be the most messed up person that they come across for them to make the show about you. So I think it definitely can have that effect for some people. I don't think young people at large are, but certainly some of them are.
Well, I also think that there should be a little bit of responsibility that goes to the companies that are producing this kind of programming. It used to be that there wasn't this kind of programming. It was more involved in scripted work, where you actually had to hire people, have a crew, hire writers. And they're moving away from that because that's really expensive. And reality programming is much less expensive. I mean, I think one of the examples that I saw online, you could basically take a couple of people who are having a really bad day, take them out in the alley by the dumpster, and there's your set, there's your crew, there's your cast, and you don't have to put any money out for that. It's low risk, high reward potentially. It costs them almost nothing. It's sort of quintessentially American. You know, you've got this something for nothing with the production companies. They put out very little, they get a lot back, and you know, who cares what they put on TV? That's
exactly the case. I feel like in a lot of ways, our entertainment has devolved, but we're consuming more and more of it because we're amused by it. And it's just a really interesting phenomenon as of late, and people are loving it. You know, you see shows like Fear Factor. How many seasons of Fear Factor are there gonna be where they're drinking like a rat smoothie? And it's just incredible. So people are really into that. Now, real quick, I don't want us to seem like, and I definitely don't want to seem like I'm judgy. I said I like reality shows. There's My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding. I enjoy it. Please don't judge me. But Malcolm, what about you? Are there any reality shows that you like to watch?
Well, I want to say one thing, piggybacking off Desi's point, which is that there's, I think there's something that, this is my lib hat, I'm going to put my lib hat, I'm not a Republican now, but there is often an overall message that a lot of these shows put out, which is about personal responsibility, and that like people, these tenants who are being evicted, they did something wrong, they lost their jobs, they don't have money, so they deserve to get evicted. And there is no reference whatsoever to the larger societal issues. There's no, the problem is not with corporate America. The problem is not with the lack of the unequal distribution of wealth in this country. The problem is not with the fact that the government's not doing anything to give people jobs, get them back to work. It's these people's fault. You're a hoarder. There's something wrong with you, and now let's all laugh at you.
That's the bully aspect of it.
But in terms of reality shows that I like, my favorite is a show called Undercover Boss, which you may not have seen, but it's not that popular. But one thing that I really like about this show, which takes a CEO who goes undercover and works at factories or wherever in his own or her own company, it is the only place on TV that you see real working class American people depicted in their noble, going through their careers, doing their lives, leading their lives, and the nobility in work and how much pride they take in their work and how hard they work for no reward. Every week, the CEO hugs them and reveals who he is, and they hug him and says, thanks for all that you do, and they're like, nobody ever says thank you to me. Nobody ever says, you know, we appreciate the work that you do. And then they get like $20,000, and they act as though their world is just, you know, all their problems are fading away for very little money. And so the depiction of working class people in those circumstances is what I like about that show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Malcolm Fleschner overcompensating for the douchey comments he said earlier on the show. No, but I've actually seen that program and I love it, and you're totally right. It's one of the few examples of reality TV that is uplifting, and it shows you that you can have faith in humanity. Desi, what about you?
Well, actually, I like that History Channel program, How It's Made, which, you know, they'll show you minor things like how candy gets made.
I love that one.
Or here, really stupid, here's golf balls. How do they get made? So I like that. I also like the Amish in the City, which is about...
That's awesome.
It is, and again, it's to me, it's similar to what you're talking about. It's a window into the lives of ordinary Americans who may have extraordinary circumstances that they're working through, or even just, you know, getting through regular life. And it's sort of that getting to see people do really nice things, being really great people, and just a window onto that world.
Nice. And Lucas, who I don't think owns a television.
I do not, so I'm not.
You live reality.
Yes, I'm not going to be very good at this.
Oh, like
but,
GTL isn't your life. Come on, look at you.
I don't even know what GTL is. What else is GTL?
Sure, gym, tanning.
Oh,
Come on, it's a ritual.
Sorry.
No.
Well, I have hung out at our director of web outreach, or whatever his specific job is now, Tom Hanks' house, and I have watched My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding.
And it's
And I have
good,
to
isn't
admit,
it?
it's fairly amusing. Yeah, and it's
It's
interesting to
amusing.
see that white trash does not just exist in the United States. It's and I know that's a
That's great. That's you outlived me by being like, I don't even have a TV. You know, ding, I win.